Hi. Welcome to the podcast. We got Matthew. He's here.
Matthew,
Yes.
YouTube guy and amazing animator.
Yep.
Do you actually, let's go through and introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
So we'll start with you, Raina.
Oh, hi. I'm Raina. I was roped into this last minute, but I'm really excited to talk to you.
Very
nice.
I'm Michael. I've been researching your videos for at least 12 of them now.
12 what?
12 videos.
Oh,
The
12 videos.
animation.
And I have
Yeah.
watched one of your
Perfect,
2-minute
perfect.
videos, so I know a lot too.
And then we have in the background, what was your name again?
Oh,
And we
yeah.
have
Yeah,
Quinn.
he's back there.
And,
He's
and then
still up.
I'm Jason Love, and so I run the Racine Video Production Workshop. And so we have about 25 people registered, but it kind of, like, every day is sort of different. And tomorrow, there's no school tomorrow, so a lot of the people,
Oh, congrats.
different things popped up. So usually what we'll do is we haven't done one of these in a long time, but we record these and then we share it through everyone in the group. And then we post it
Cool.
online usually as well. So
Yeah.
Cool.
I know that Michael already gave you an amazing introduction, but would you like to introduce yourself, Matthew?
Sure. I am Matthew McCleskey. I make animated sketch comedy on YouTube.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then we kind of have it broken down into 4 sections just so you have a heads up. We're talking about how you got started, your process, a little bit like the business and career, and then we'll end kind of more on your like day to day and kind of like the life of a YouTuber, I guess.
Sure.
Did you have a question? You had a question about? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. Are you actually American?
I am actually American. yes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Oh, good.
Well, we're getting our stuff straight. I like
Yep.
it.
So how did you get started on YouTube?
Yeah. So I was just out of college. I graduated the year that the pandemic started. So I got out into the real world when nothing was happening.
Oh,
So I went on a Colorado trip with a couple friends. We just rented out a cabin and we were staying there for a bit. And on the way there, I was just explaining an idea I had for a video. I mean, even since childhood, I had been making videos just myself. Like I used to do some like stick figure animations, and I did some Lego stop motion for a bit. And then eventually went into film school. But after all that, I was kind of explaining this video idea I had. And while on the trip, we were watching videos from Joel Haver, who's another creator on YouTube. And then on the way back, we saw that he posted a tutorial for how he did his animations. And the video idea I had, it's the first animation I posted. So it's like the apocalypse one. And that's going to be a super difficult idea to get to look good, like live action with actual footage. But his tutorial was like the perfect stylization that could make it feasible to do. And so like as soon as I got home, I jumped on it. And since he put out the tutorial, a lot of people were also using it to make things. And mine, I think, stood out in that initial wave. So it got that initial boost of attention. And then I just stuck with it. And I think sticking with it when a lot of people did their test and were satisfied and stopped kind of helped the channel boom. So it was just kind of lucky timing all around.
Recording in progress.
Sorry about that.
Ah.
yes.
I figured I'd
All
get it
good.
back up just in case. Yeah, we actually interviewed Joel Haver a couple years ago, and so
Oh, nice.
So none of these students, I think, none of them were there at that
No.
time.
We're unfortunately
And
babies.
that's kind of where we found you, just through some of his Epson stuff and sort of looking at
That makes sense.
who was
Yeah.
using that. And, we did a project using it. Well, that's how we found him. Was we were trying to do rotoscope, and I was trying to find ways to do it without, basically the way he did it. But I didn't know that it existed yet, and so I was just looking through stuff,
Yeah.
and eventually, I know that they had done it. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Waking Life. So I know that they used the software, and so I was kind of like, that software has to exist now. And then it was sort of crazy
Right.
that it turned out he had that tutorial, and then so that's how we ended up finding you as well.
Cool.
So when you were saying when you were starting, you just had this idea. When was the point where you're like, oh, I could maybe make money on this? And then like, what was that? Was that ever like a goal to be like, oh, I could do this as a career, like early on, or what was the?
So at the time, I was doing some VFX and editing work for a larger channel that I got connected with through some people I knew. So at the time, it wasn't about like, oh, I need to do this because I need to be making money. Like this needs to be a job. It was just I was just having fun and making videos and kept having ideas, so I just kept making them. And then over time, I crossed the threshold of the partner program requirements, and I was like, oh, now money's coming in. And then a couple videos did really well, and it was like, okay, this is could actually be a job. And so just slowly over time, I've started to make the shift towards doing YouTube full time. I'll still do some freelance work here and there, but most of the time I'm working on YouTube.
Did you learn a lot working with that other, working with the other channel, doing sort of? I assume that they were doing it full time if they're able to pay you something.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was for a channel called Superhero Kids, so it's like, I don't want to say it kind of is VFX heavy, nothing intense. It's like basic effects, but like learning to set up a workflow by doing that really helped me get started. And even still, my workflow is changing and optimizing, but that definitely helped me figure out how to organize my own work.
So with that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask. So I only watched like a couple of your videos, right? But the first thing that popped out to me was how unique your animation style was. It kind of reminded me of this one channel I watched like a few months ago where they had live action figures, but they made like the person look animated, right? It gave me that cartoon kind of comic sense. What's your process in making it?
Yeah, so you have to start with filming it live action. So I have a closet of not even costumes. It's just like pieces of clothing, because when you draw over it after, so you film it, you edit it, and then you'll export all of those shots as PNG sequences. So you have a folder full of photos of each frame of each shot, and then you just, depending on how much movement there is, you just pick out frames, and then I go into Photoshop, draw over them, and then there's the program that makes it all work, which is, I think they call it EB Synth. I call it EbSynth because the B is lowercase. That's how I read it. And it interpolates those drawn frames over the live action footage to make it match. And then I add it all back in on top of the footage that I filmed. So now it's all animated. And then I go in and do backgrounds, extra effects, further editing, sound, all of that until I have a finished product. But since you draw over it, you can get really creative with costuming because it doesn't have to be the right color, texture, anything. All you need is just the shape. And if you have the shape, you can draw over it, and it can be anything, which is where a lot of the creativity comes in. And that part's really fun.
Ooh, that sounds like a really interesting process. Thank you for explaining it for me.
Yeah.
Going off of that, I saw some of your behind the scenes stuff, and it was, how much of it do you do in After Effects? Because that seemed unique to me. And then do you do the audio also?
I used to use Adobe. That's what I grew up learning.
Okay.
But over the years, when you have enough crashes, it starts to get under your skin.
Oh my God.
I did do basically every shot I would have to do in After Effects just with what I added. But I work in DaVinci Resolve now, which has like your visual effects comping stuff's in there, your editing, sound editing, color grading. It's all just in the one program that's a lot more stable and uses your hardware more efficiently. So that's what I work in now. But I did used to do everything with Adobe's Dynamic Link. So I'd start in Premiere and then link it to After Effects and do every shot that way. So it's probably my fault for pushing Adobe so far to have it crash, but
No.
I do like DaVinci Resolve a lot more.
I get that. I use Adobe Pro or Premiere, I think. And oh my God, my computer cannot render it properly. So it always crashes. And then it deletes all my files. And I get so mad. So I understand
I've lost a lot of work.
It's so annoying.
What do you use for the audio then? Does Premiere or does Resolve have audio editing?
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
They have a whole audio editing suite in there. Yeah.
We've been thinking about playing with Resolve only because like we have like our Blackmagic mixer. It can do it as like a file that can go right into Resolve and then have the.
Oh, that's nice.
And so we haven't done that yet, just because there's so much stuff to learn as we go.
Right.
That it's been hard. So actually, that's a good question. How, do you have, like, since you're doing After Effects and you're doing like camera movements and stuff, do you think of like, this is what I need to get, this is an idea I want to do, and then try to figure out, or do you, how to do it, or do you study like the software and kind of figure out, oh, I can do this, and then come up with an idea?
I always start with the idea first, and if I need to, I will sit and brute force my way through tutorials until I figure out how to do it. And one of the big ones, it's not even the typical animation style I did. I did one video almost entirely in Blender that was just 3D animated for one of the Zelda games, because I had an idea. There's in the game, there's a special sword you can get called Big Goron Sword, and then I connected that to Big Iron, and I was like, nobody's made this. I just have to. I know it's not going to do well on my channel, but I spent like a couple weeks with constant Blender tutorials open on my screen until I could get that working. So any idea that I don't immediately have the knowledge to do is a learning opportunity. So I like taking those.
I know you had a question about, actually, let me ask a quick question. So with Joel, I know he does a lot of his as improv. For your pre-production, do you do a script, or how is your pre-production process?
Sometimes I've written a lot of my videos. Sometimes, like for some of the Star Wars ones, I'll just get up and I'll just improv as one character, and then it makes a mess for myself, because then I switch to being a different character. I'm like, okay, what did I say? How do I respond to that? That could make this other character respond in a certain way, and I just kind of improv with myself over time. But it's a lot easier to write it beforehand. But I do like improving as well.
I can very much relate, because I talk to myself constantly. Yep. In
Me too.
different voices. Yep. Yeah.
That makes me wonder, are you the only one that works on it most of the time? Do you do the voice acting, scripting, and
most of the
animating?
time? I'd say it's like 85 to 90% me. I like working with other people. My friends in real life sometimes will help out. I mean, they have their own work schedules and jobs, so
Right.
that's not always viable. Since YouTube's my full-time thing, my during the day is working on that. It doesn't always work out that way. I've of course collaborated with other people online. Like I'll do a call like this, and we'll both have in-ear headphones in and our cameras set up, and we'll do it that way. So those are a lot of fun, but most of the time it is just myself. So I do have to work with that.
How do you set a schedule? Like, how long are you working every day? Can it get pretty hectic and unorganized?
Just due to my workflow, like each project kind of has the same process. But in terms of when I'm working on each part, it's kind of just when it happens, if that makes sense. Like, videos don't always take the same amount of time. It's kind of hard to predict. So, just whenever I get to each part of the process is when I get to it. When I am working on it,
Do you take weekends
basically work hours.
off? Oh, that's what I asked.
I like to.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have a sponsor and I need to get a video finished for them. Sometimes I'm just ready to be done and my weekend's free, so I'll knock it out. But I do make sure to take like a day or two of break after a video. Otherwise, that's a quick road to burnout. So I do make sure to take breaks.
All right.
Do you try to do weekly, or do you have a set schedule as far as like, I'm trying like an aim for how many videos you want to release in a year or month or whatever?
I did weekly for, I think, for sure 1 year. I think 2 years. I'm not certain. But once I started getting sponsors involved, and they have like their timelines that they need things done, and they don't always give the most notice. Sometimes it's like, we have an offer for you. It needs to be done in like 2 weeks. It's like, okay, I need to get started on that now. And having a sponsor segment does add a little extra work. So I haven't done weekly recently. It's just kind of been when they're done.
Michael, you said that you knew how many total videos there were? Because you mentioned how many.
Let me see.
Oh, I thought you
got-
had it memorized.
I got the playlist up. Hold on.
What do you remember your question?
122.
Do you remember your question about? You had some question about the Star Wars ones.
Uh-huh. How'd you do the lightsabers?
I used to do the classic method of going frame by frame and drawing those on. And some shots, when I was animating over them, if it was like still enough, maybe someone's just holding it out and it's not moving, I could do like a flat green, like draw this blade green screened, and then I could pull from that. But recently, after I did a sponsor and they gave me prop lightsabers that light up, I now just turn it on muted mode with the bright white light on, and I can pull a Luma key and I get all the lightsaber movement easy. I can just add the glow back on, and it's so much faster doing it that way.
Dang.
Did you say you noticed that in one of the videos?
Yeah, I noticed it's like it's holding down here. You're desperately trying to hold it down here to hide it, and you can see kind of like a brown stick
Yeah.
like they used to do back in the day.
Oh, so the old
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I have to go soon, so I'm just gonna ask one more question before I leave. What would you say to anyone who's interested in doing what you do, and how would you, what would you tell them to get them motivated and started?
I would say just make what you want to see. If there's content you wish were being made and you don't see it, you could be the one to make it. You can, just have fun with it. If it, eventually you'll find an audience. So just do what you like, make what you want to see.
Okay, thank you. All right, I gotta go. Bye. Thanks for having
Keep
me.
it by.
Bye-bye.
We were talking about the Star Wars one, because at first I wasn't sure if you had a voice actor with the accent. So is that I think Michael did say he
Yeah,
was.
Charles.
Yeah, I the most recent one I did was a collaboration with Charlie Hopkinson, and he is an incredible impressionist, and he also deep fakes his videos. So I got deep fake footage of Liam Neeson's face on him, and he was doing the impression, and it was really weird just to get that footage.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just got sent Liam Neeson. That is crazy. But outside of that, I think every other has been me. Yeah.
Actually, with that one, I actually was wondering if it was from if part of it was from the movie, because it's been
Sometimes
Yeah, a little bit of
I
it, yeah.
will. A couple shots. I like to do that if I'm like spoofing a scene from a movie.
Totally.
I'll always like start in the scenes so people recognize, like, I know what part of what movie that is and where we're going from there. So I do start with movie footage a lot of the time.
Will you use so for the backgrounds for that, will you kind of just stick with those movie frames, or do you try to see if you can find a clean slate online, or how would that work if you have a character moving?
I'll pull a frame and Photoshop it a lot of the time if it's like still shots. Some other times there's lots of Star Wars games and even mods for those games where people have just modeled out entire sections of the movie, even if they were on screen for 5 seconds. Doesn't matter. There's a very detailed game scene that somebody has made. So sometimes I'll go in there and use those.
I know you also had this is just jumping around a little bit. You talked about Blender, and you had one of your tutorials or one of your behind the scenes kind of had Blender on it. Do you use that a lot, or do you not use that as much anymore?
I'll use it in very specific cases, like 3D objects that I need to move around that maybe I don't have something on hand to film and draw over. I'll use Blender for that. I've done some characters in Blender, like really like characters that would be really intricate to draw over and over, like doing Darth Vader. Number one, I'd have to get a Darth Vader costume to draw over, and that would be very expensive. Stormtroopers. But even if I did have the costume, like all the lines and detailing would take forever to draw, so it's easier to just do them as a 3D model.
I actually realized we don't ever use Blender. Can you explain what Blender is?
Yeah, it's a free 3D software, so you can render out 3D scenes, 3D animations, things of that nature. But it is free, at least for now. I think Adobe bought it, so we'll see.
Oh, that is interesting. I didn't know that. That's actually troublesome.
A little bit.
Kind of going into like business and revenue streams. I assume you can share this. What is your biggest income stream out of all those things that you do? And actually, can you name? I don't know if you have a store or not. I can't remember. I think you do, right? Okay.
I do. That's a very small part. It's more so just like a fun for the fans type thing at the moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't make very much, and buying samples for advertising it and stuff, it's like just over break even. So it's still fun to do though. But main revenue source is sponsors. YouTube does not pay a lot for sub 8-minute short form content. So sponsors definitely help make it a viable career when you're making shorter videos. And then TikTok recently started paying somewhat comparable amounts for posting longer than a minute long videos there. But in America, that remains to be seen if that will continue. So
like, literally, yeah, like right as we speak, kind of situation.
Right as, yeah.
So when you do actually, I haven't looked at your other. I'll just see on YouTube. Did you check out his other channels? His Instagram, and you have Instagram as well, right?
No.
Do you find most of your traffic
use it a lot.
from YouTube, or do you find it actually kind of split up between the 4 or 5?
Oh, mainly YouTube for sure.
Okay.
I don't post enough on Instagram as someone in my career probably should. And they, as soon as I started posting reels, they cut monetization for that. And it's a lot of work to convert YouTube content into a format that fits there in like a length. So I stopped doing that, but that's also the same time TikTok started paying. So I guess that's the trade-off.
Yeah, we have a bunch, but I would say we have the normal Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and it is a pain when they like adjust, like where the text is and all that stuff can become problematic pretty fast.
Exactly.
Oh shoot, I just had a different one. That's okay. With getting ads, how did that even start? Like, did somebody reach out to you? Did you reach out to somebody, or what did that look like?
I'm trying to think of what the first one was, and I think it was HelloFresh, and I think I just got reached out to by them. And pretty soon you start to get like the, how to put this, the unserious brand deals, like ones who will reach out and not reply back to you after they're the ones who expressed the interest in the first place, or ones who will just negotiate forever and you can't land on a deal. So pretty quick I joined an agency to help facilitate that as kind of like a middleman where they can handle finding brands and negotiating it before it comes to me, so I can just focus on the creative end of it. And that's been very largely helpful.
And you found that, I'm assuming you found that beneficial enough to, because obviously they'd have to take like any agency would take a percentage, so it must kind of like make it worth it, just time wise.
Very, very much worth it. Yes.
I remember the question I was going to ask earlier was, I've noticed that you do certain videos that could be a short, but you do it as the horizontal, and I'm curious if do you usually try to, I know you have some shorts, do you stay away from the shorts, or do you, I guess, is there a reason for that? I'm just out of curiosity.
Shorts are really interesting. Like, they're still pretty new for YouTube, so I think they're still trying to figure out how to best implement them, and they've been slowly taking steps, like letting you link back to a main video. And I just haven't before because they pay way less than other videos, and they only have a minute-long maximum runtime that you can have.
Yeah.
So a lot of my ideas will just barely skirt past that minute mark. But shorts are good for supplementary posting. Something I'm going to try to start doing is posting smaller bits from longer videos as shorts. I think that's kind of the strategy a lot of people have been using because they're great at getting your video out in front of a lot of people, but most people will not, even if they subscribe, they're not going to go check out long stuff most of the time if they see it from a short.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like it's a little bit harder even just to like see that button. Like it's kind of like when you watch a video,
exactly.
it's all like right there. That makes sense. We kind of talked about your day to day already, but do you do, or I guess, or especially more early on, did you do any marketing or anything like strategic specifically to kind of get connected with other creators or just to get your name out there?
Not entirely. I just kind of did my own thing for a while. I mean, I did reach out, but it was to other creators, but it was mostly in like the, hey, do you want to do this thing in my video capacity? Just because I thought characters I had would be really well done by people other than me. But I think I just kind of let YouTube's algorithm kind of handle the advertising bit of it and just getting it out to people.
Do you still collaborate with people, or is it? I think you kind of mentioned you end up doing most of it on your own. But do you still reach out, or do you kind of just sort of stay in your own little? You don't try to just get your stuff done.
I try to have an idea ready before I reach out because I don't want to reach out to someone and have them be like, yeah, what do you have in mind? I don't know. So a lot of the time it's just when an idea hits and I'm like, I know someone who would be great in that role or with that character, then I'll reach out, see if they're interested.
We're going to start doing more animation. Actually, this year we got some. We actually got some funding to get some iPads and stuff.
Oh, nice.
How many frames do you usually end up drawing? Like, or two questions. One is how many frames do you usually end up drawing, and then how long does it usually take to do animation for like a 1 minute thing?
I've done. Actually, let me check this most recent video. I can tell you the frame count. It's something cool. I never look at because it's scary. Let's see. Obi-Wan learns about midichlorians. That one was like 3-something minutes. Let's see. It has to search. It has to search. I think I remember one video being, I think it was like 6 to 8 minutes. I think it was just over 8. It was the MasterChef video. I think that had like 653 drawn frames.
Oh, wow.
That took...
Like the one with the glazed donut guy?
Yes, that one. And that took
that was
a couple of weeks. Oh, thank you.
Uh-oh. I think...
okay, let's see.
Yeah, that one.
Your free meeting will end in 10 minutes.
We're still good. We'll wrap this up in a couple of minutes. I forgot. Right. I was going to ask something related to that, but I can't remember. Oh, you said a couple weeks. Do you end up focusing on one project, or do you end up kind of like jumping around usually?
I focus on one project. Otherwise, it's number one, I'll have a lot of footage on my computer, and I don't have that much storage space. But it's also just easier to just go through the whole process with one video and then call it done and move on. Otherwise, my brain's just going to be idly thinking about like, oh, for that one shot in that other video, I could be doing this. And that shot's going to sit there in my mind all day until I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do that real quick. And I'll quickly distract myself that way.
So do you, when you're working, is it, do you tend to work very linear, or is it kind of like you'll go through, kind of get the edit done, and then kind of go through to the audio? Like I've noticed kind of most people, I've seen kind of a few different ways. So I'm curious if you have like a flow like that. How do you usually tackle?
Yeah, I'll do the filming first. I'll go through and I'll do the edit, and then I'll do the drawing, adding those shots in. Then I'll do backgrounds, and once I kind of have like the picture locked in, then I'll go through and I'll do audio. And sometimes I will realize like, oh, I didn't film something, or realize another thing to add later that could be good to film. So I'll go back and do that and kind of do that process over again in a smaller form for that bit and then add it back in.
So kind of tackling it kind of like skill set at a time, sort of, and then
Right,
adjusting
yeah.
as you go, kind of a situation. That makes sense. Did you have any other questions?
No.
Any
Not really.
specific one that you wanted to ask about? Any specific video?
No.
No? Okay. Do you have any advice for, so we work with high school students and we're starting to go a little bit beyond into like college and bring in community members to kind of basically just teaching media production. And so anyone who wants to do, let's just say YouTube as a career, or even just like life, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, you just have to go for it and be consistent. That's the main thing. The internet moves fast, and if you if you stop posting for any amount of time, there is the risk of it moving on without you. But if you post content that you like, there's a high chance there's a lot of other people who will also like it, and they will keep coming back.
Awesome. Do you want to do an outro? Just a very long pause.
Yep, that's the outro. All right.
Well, thank you, Matthew, for joining us
Yeah, thank
on
you.
the Racine Video Production Workshop.
Yep.
Do you have anything to say, I guess, before we... do you have anything to say? And then also plug all your stuff.
Oh, sure. I'll say thanks for having me. And then you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok under Matthew McCleskey. It's just my name. Real simple. Not the spelling maybe, but that it is my name. That's simple.
So, cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a wonderful night. You want
You
to
too.
hold on.
All right.